If the Bible was about any other subject, I would have no doubt whatsoever that this would be accepted as one of the most accurate and reliable historical documents ever produced. It is purely because of what it is about and the implications of it being true that people try to discredit it. However, you ask an agriculturist and they will tell you that the laws to cultivate and enrest crops enhanced them long before scientific discovery of those methods. You ask an anatomist and they'll tell you that scientific discoveries over the past century point to more and more convincing conclusions that creation must have been a design of the human body. It can't have just come from nothing. You ask an anthropologist and they'll tell you that humans are hardwired to need worship. You ask an archaeologist and they'll tell you that we keep discovering places described in the Bible that people wrote off as completely fiction. We keep finding them. You ask an astronomist and they'll tell you the Bible is always accurate, predating known science, such as Pleiades being gravitationally bound and Orion being loose. You ask an astrophysicist and they'll tell you the universe had an ex nihilo being. It came from nothing. It came from nothing and expanded from there. You ask a bacteriologist and they'll tell you that flagellum is irreducibly complex. It can't have evolved because you can't take anything away whatsoever for it to have actually existed. You ask a biochemist and they will explain to you the improbability that evolution can construct the machinery that we see in nature and get all the parts to function together from the start. You ask a biologist and they'll explain that human beings are different from any other creature created. You ask a chemist and they'll tell you that identical enantiomers have developed which cannot possibly have evolved independently from each other. And they'll tell you about the large number of parallels between the periodic table and the creation account long before the periodic table was ever discovered. You ask an ecologist and they'll tell you the food laws described in the Bible turn out to be sustainable. You ask a geneticist and they'll tell you that emerging evidence is arriving of a bottleneck in terms of human history that coincides with when the flood would have taken place. You ask a geologist and they'll tell you that rock distribution and fossil formation supports the flood. You ask a marine biologist and they'll tell you that NASA discovered marine fossils at the top of Mount Everest in 2021. You ask a mathematician and they will explain that it is absolutely mathematically impossible that Jesus Christ, the historic figure that is indisputably one who had existed, it is impossible that that person was not also the Messiah in the Bible, according to mathematical probabilities. You ask a meteorologist and they will attest that the correctness of the Bible when it comes to hydrological cycles that are described, jet stream circuits and the principle of rotation, all described in the Bible, were all completely accurate hundreds and hundreds of years before scientific discovery. You ask a microbiologist and they will tell you that cedar is an effective treatment of microbiological illnesses and was one of the scientifically astute laws in the Levitical laws that is described in the Bible. You ask a molecular biologist and they will tell you that all experiments to produce life from non-life have failed, such as Miller's. They've all failed. The mathematical probability of forming the first living thing, the first living cell, by random chance is beyond impossible. You ask a neurologist and they will tell you that precise neurological conditions, head and spinal injuries like epilepsy, handedness, neuralgias, aphasia, tinnitus and tremors were all discussed in depth and are precisely described by people by the relevant medical knowledge being available, corroborated by the peer-reviewed Handbook of Clinical Neurology. You ask a nuclear physicist and they'll tell you the speed of light is exactly 299,792,458 meters per second, and if it was just a tiny bit different, life on Earth would be impossible. You ask an oceanologist and they would tell you that Matthew Maury, the father of oceanology, pioneered that whole field of study through research because of what he read in Psalms chapter 8. You ask an organic chemist and they will tell you that chemical evolution fails to adequately account for the origin of the proteins required for even the simplest free-living organism. You tell an ornithologist and you ask them and they'll tell you everything about birds, from bone structure to feathers, so that they are so perfectly adapted to flight that an innumerable number of mutations would be necessary for dinosaurs or any other creature to evolve into a bird. You ask a paleontologist and they will tell you the Bible references dinosaurs 3,200 years before the first fossil was discovered by William Buckland. You ask a physicist and they'll tell you that there are more than 100 different features of the universe and the laws of physics, and they must be exquisitely fine-tuned to make advanced life possible. And there are more than 800 different features of our galaxy and planetary system which also must be fine-tuned for advanced life to possibly exist. A single one of those is different and we're not here. You ask a physiologist and they'll tell you that humanity would not win the survival of the fittest, so it defies any form of logic that we've prevailed as the dominant species. You ask a seismologist and they will tell you that Eli Smithsonian museums accept the discovery of evidence within the last few years that supports the 8th century BC earthquakes described in Amos and Zechariah, and there's also evidence to support the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah discovered in the 20th century. You ask a social scientist and they will tell you that there is 122 times more proof to corroborate the biblical accuracy than anything written by Aristotle as being written by him, and that there is more proof that corroborates the Bible being written by who they said it was than Homer, Plato, Aristotle, Caesar and Tacitus combined. You ask a thermodynamicist and they'll tell you the first and second laws of thermodynamics are described accurately in the Bible, that no natural force can create energy and the universe is moving towards entropy. That means it's falling apart. And you ask a zoologist and they will tell you that Levitical descriptions of the function of blood is 100% accurate.
To understand how it all fits together, sign up for our course, Understand the Bible. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss a video.